PM training session 1, an overview of the patient file. To log in to ASPC Complete PM, I will use the built-in user ID user1, and the password is test in lowercase letters. Notice if you ever see a message on the bottom of the screen in red in regards to the last local copy being overdue, please contact tech support as soon as possible to resolve. So I'll go ahead and log in. Okay, now that I am logged in, to go over the patient file, we'll go to the Open button to look up a patient. Here we can search by last name or account number or any of these other search criteria. I'll bring up a sample patient and we'll open up the patient file by clicking on it and then clicking open. When the patient file opens, here we have the patient demographics to fill in, the employer information at the bottom. Employer information would be stored for work comp cases. If you go to the pick button next to the employer name, you can store employers. Wherever you see a pick button in the program, it's a place to store information. Once you have the patient demographics filled in, you would select the clinic, the patient's doctor, again using the pick buttons, the case type, and then the patient's balance is displayed at the top along with the insurance balance and the total. Next, we'll take a look at the diagnosis tab. The diagnosis codes are stored here. Again, there's a pick button to choose from a list of diagnosis codes. You can select the diagnosis codes to add them to the patient's file. That will add them here. And then if you make a mistake and you want to delete a code, you can just click on the line and hit delete. The print order is controlled by the drop-down box. You can switch the print order if the primary code should be secondary and so on. You could switch them here, or if a code becomes inactive, you can mark it as inactive. Towards the bottom half of the diagnosis tab, here you have the illness primary date and date type. That would be the date information reported on the 1500 claim form for box 14. The next date box, other date here in the middle. If you needed to report a secondary date in box 15 and date type, that's where you put that information. Next, we have the insurance tab where you store insurance information. The insurance type can be changed here, primary, secondary, tertiary, and so on. You can mark insurance as inactive. Your list of insurance carriers are in the pick buttons, where you can store insurance carriers, add new ones, or edit existing records. The bottom half of the insurance tab, you see the insurance information displayed with the insurance carrier name and address, the payer ID for electronic billing, and at the bottom, the insurance type. There's a drop-down box to choose from. The secondary insurance is here. If I click on the secondary insurance, that changes the insurance information displayed to the secondary insurance. The insured information, that's where we would fill in the subscriber guarantor information. That would either be the patient or the policyholder of the insurance policy. Now, if you choose relationship as felt in the drop-down box, it'll automatically populate the patient information from the patient tab. And then if you choose any other relationship code, you can change that here. And if you needed to change anything about the insured patient information for the policyholder, you can edit the name and address if you need to. The copay information is displayed here. You can store the copay info here. It's also displayed at the top of the file next to the balance. And you can also use the copay amount and to be calculated in the due today estimate. That would be the previous balance forward and the copay for an estimate of what the patient might owe for today's visit. Next, we have the Cases tab. In the program, you can have more than one case for a patient. So for example, if you had a patient that was being seen under their medical insurance, and then a couple years later, they come into the office with an auto accident case, instead of creating a new file for that patient, you can add a new case. To do that, you would open up the Cases tab like we have here. For Patricia, go to File, New, and then Patient Case. And that'll allow you to create a second case or a third case if need be, where you can specify all of the insurance information, all of the information, and the new case would be separate from any other cases that the patient has. So you would choose the case type for your new case, as well as the doctor and the clinic, and then fill in the insurance information. To switch between cases, we can just double click on the other case and click OK to open the other case within the patient file. Now we're in case number 2. You have a different case type, different balance, everything's separate between the 2 separate cases. And go back to case number 1. Now I'm back to case number 1 again. The Charges tab, this is where you'll key in charges. You can just type the code in, the code box here, or use the pick button to choose from a list of fee codes. So I'll go to New, and then I'll use the pick button to select the code. And then save. And I've added a charge. To post payments, payments are posted on the Payments tab. Ideally, you would want to post by line item. So the first thing you would do, generally, is click on the charge you want to post your payment to. You can see here, I have a $20 charge. Insurance portion due in red is $20. So if I had an insurance payment, I could post it here. If I had an adjustment amount that I want to write off, for example, I can post that in the adjustment row. If there's a patient responsibility portion to transfer to patient, the transfer to patient responsibility would go for copay. And then once you save your transactions, they're saved here in the ledger. Next, we'll go ahead and talk about the buttons up at the top. The Add button to add a new patient. Opens up a new patient file to fill in. The Open button to search for patients. We looked at that a moment ago. The Save button, which would be active when you're in a patient's file, and click Save. Statement button to generate a statement or a receipt for patients. The Alerts button to set up an alert message upon opening the patient's file. The Claim button to bill an individual patient's claims or rebill an individual patient's claims. The Claims button to batch bill multiple patients. You can set filters on insurance carriers, case types, or date ranges. Auto Pay to automatically post electronic remittance files. the appointment scheduler, the birthday list to generate lists for patients' birthdays or print labels, inventory to keep track of products or supplements, number of units on hand, and purchase orders, things like that. The record center to store patient files such as scanned insurance cards or X-ray images, documentation, things like that are easily accessible through the patient's file in the record center. Reports, various reports here. There's a list of reports such as a day sheet to balance out at the end of the day. And then you have your monthly reports for totals, such as the office stats report or the aging report. And then the PM settings.